Today on Gunbelievable, we're taking a look at the Remington RP9. Of the 4 controls on this gun, 2 are broken and the other 2 suck. Yet Remington called it superior to every full-size polymer-framed handgun. Were they right? No, but let's find out why. The RP9 comes in a nice green cardboard box. You get the standard safety lock, 2 magazines, 2 back straps in different sizes, a manual, and a sticker and card celebrating Remington's 200th year in business. Here's to another 200, Remington. Or, well, dang. The gun itself is massive, holding 18 plus 1 rounds of 9mm. It's nearly as long as a Glock 34 and almost as tall, but noticeably wider. It's top-heavy with a chunky, overbuilt slide that brings its weight up to 38 ounces, or 1,080 grams, when fully loaded. The slide alone weighs 20 ounces. That's as much as this entire Glock 26. Remington claimed the grip is slimmer than other guns in this category, allegedly fitting 95% of shooters' hands, and picking it up, that feels true. It doesn't fill the hand the way you might expect. At the top of the grip, the circumference is 10% less than a Glock's, and that's with the medium-sized backstrap on both guns. No ergonomic curves here, just a rounded-off rectangle with a slight palm swell. Those backstraps are retained with a roll pin, so changing them is needlessly difficult. The texturing is subtle. The gun isn't slippery, but it's not grippy the way I'd like. And this decorative seam around the top edge here is a little sharp. It rubs the base of my thumb raw in both dry and live fire. Manipulating the slide, you can feel the mass in it. You'd think the spring would be a little lighter to compensate, but it's actually about as stiff as any other handgun. The serrations could be more aggressive, and though I appreciate there being a few at the front, more are needed. It's tough to get a good purchase up there. The sights are a standard 3-dot arrangement, bright white on black. They look like a Novak cut, so you should have no trouble swapping them if you want. No optics mounting options? That's a little disappointing for a gun released in 2016. The trigger is serrated and has a blade safety, aka a trigger dingus. There's some take-up, followed by a rolling brake at about 4.5 pounds, and then there's lots of spongy over-travel. Yuck. The reset is a little long, tactile, but not very audible. Takes you right back to the, rolling brake. It's gross, but for most people, it shouldn't get in your way too much. There's a 3-slot accessory rail at the front for mounting lights or anything else. The mag release is here. It's quite stiff and smaller than it should be on a gun this size, so that'll slow down your reloads. It's not ambidextrous, but it is reversible, and while mags do drop free, they fall out more so than popping out. The slide release is here. It's low profile, which I don't prefer, but it takes very little force to drop the slide with it, and I like that. It's supposed to be ambidextrous, but amazingly, it isn't. The release on the left side works as expected in both directions, but on the right side, it only works in the upward direction to lock the slide open. Try pulling it down to release the slide, and nothing happens. To see why, let's take the gun apart. Disassembling the RP9 should be easy. Clear it, of course, then lock it open, rotate the disassembly lever down, let the slide forward, pull the trigger, and, let me see here. Let's try this again. Well, shucks, it won't come apart. I'm not the only person to have this problem with the gun, and none of the often suggested solutions work for me. After much futzing, I eventually discovered the root cause. The recoil spring guide rod is angling upwards, which causes the back end of it to dip down a bit and catch on this front pin for the chassis. You can even see where some of the green factory grease from the spring has rubbed off onto it. Simply pushing the guide rod down after rotating the disassembly lever fixes the issue every time. Did Remington never test this? Wow. Anyway, once the slide's off, we can see why the release isn't actually ambidextrous. It catches the slide on the left side, so the right side has to transfer the force over to the left, and the metal in between is so flimsy that it just flexes rather than moving the catch. Incredible. The frame internals are a chassis system, but Remington didn't do anything with that. There are no replacement grip frames or anything else. The barrel and spring come out of the slide in the usual way. Reassembling the gun is the same in reverse. Shooting the RP9 is surprisingly nice in some ways. .45 caliber pistols are famous for having recoil that feels more like a push than a kick, and the RP9 is pushier than any .45 I've ever shot. The slide moves so slowly, you can almost just watch it go back and forth. If you like to shoot fast, that cycle time might get in your way, but for most people, it'll feel downright comfy. I've had none of the trigger slaps some folks report, no complaints about accuracy. This would be a great gun to hand to a new shooter who's a little intimidated by the recoil of a full power cartridge. But there is that one spot on the grip that irritates my thumb, and more importantly, it will not run reliably. I've had many failures to return to battery, requiring me to smack the back of the slide to get it going again. I've also had more serious failures to feed that couldn't be so quickly remedied, and some failures to extract that seemed more frequent when firing when loaded to the full 18+1. It also failed to lock open sometimes. For me, the failures are ammo agnostic, but these guns are famous for disliking heavier ammo. Military Arms Channel has a video showing how his RP9 gets the nose of longer 147 grain loads caught on the underside of the feed ramp, jamming the gun up hard. Remington warns that using excessive force can cause a locked open slide to go home, but it happens a lot for me, and I don't think I'm being excessive. When it does, there's a strong chance that the gun double feeds, or stovepipes on a live cartridge, or sends an extra round out through the ejection port, contributing to a litany of jams. There's an unusual amount of front-to-back wiggle room for the cartridges in these magazines, and feeding issues seem to happen more often the further forward the cartridges sit in there. That can vary depending on how you loaded it or if the mag gets bumped. The size of these mags tells me they're really 45 mag bodies with 9mm feed lips. That's not good. You really want cartridges to be in one predictable place for reliable feeding. So who is this gun for? Well, frankly, it's for Remington. They were struggling in the mid-2010s, so when the R51 flopped, they tried to make a pistol too unremarkable to fail, hoping the Remington name alone would generate sales. And it probably would have. But then they tried to reduce costs, not just with flimsy slide releases or terrible QA, but by trying to share too many parts with the RP45. Why else would the frames and external dimensions be identical, or the RP9 slide be so heavy, or the mag bodies be so large? Having the marketing team push this cheap corner cutter as a Glock killer was the cherry on top. The MSRP was $489, but Remington got so desperate to shift these that just a year after release, they were going for $169. Even that didn't work. By 2020, it was discontinued, and though the name lives on, a bankruptcy ended the Remington company as we knew it. So if you're ever tempted to pick up one of these, maybe don't. That's it from Gunbelievable on the Remington RP9. Smash that like button, be sure to subscribe. If I get 1 million subs, I'll test it for something it might be good at, anchoring boats.